Hey guys, Kelade here with a commentary on a Mythic Plus 16 quarter stars from last week. I'll be going over, what our strategies for this dungeon are and kind of fill in the blanks. I'll also be going over some common questions and mistakes that I've seen on YouTube and for my stream, along with kind of going over the new changes that are coming out for Fury Wars on the PTR for patch 7.2. There's a lot of stuff to cover. We're all going to do it in one take. Let's just get started. So for this dungeon, in the beginning, there are a trick that you can do where you get on the passenger's mount of somebody else in your group. They get on the boat and then it'll drop you into the water. You can get onto your water strider and get over there. But to be honest, that only saves you around like 15 to 10 seconds. So it's not really worth it for the trouble that it kind of causes. Um, but what I personally do like to do is once the boat gets over there, I'll heroic leap over and I'll just start wailing on the ad. He doesn't do enough damage to really warrant tanks really need to be on him, and I just pop all my cooldowns along with Draft of Souls because I don't need it really until much later in the dungeon. Because there's going to be a lot of AoE pulls before that. Speaking of AoE pulls, I do want to mention really quickly, uh, I think every Fury Warrior should be taking advantage of active trinkets and being able to swap equipment in and out in Mythic Plus dungeons, right? You should be creating different equipment sets for your different AoE trinkets, and you should be swapping them throughout the entire dungeon, right? So you see, after I kill that ad, I guess you can't really see that well, but after I kill that ad, I swapped to an equipment set that took off Strathos Souls and put on Windscar Whetstone, right? So for this, generally, you want to get these beacons because they're going to end up summoning ad later, so I just click them. But if you can, you do want your healers clicking on those beacons. We skip that first construct on the bridge just because fighting just one construct isn't really worth it unless there's a reason why, right? Like we're gonna kill this construct because we're gonna pull all the ads onto him, and we don't want him, casting that heal on all the ads because if all those ads get healed, it's gonna be a pretty bad time. So after we kill this construct, I tell my tank that I have all my AoE ready, so we're gonna pull all the mana worms together. Um, and since this is a Sanguine week, you want to be careful about killing all the mana worms too quickly on top of the guy. Luckily, our group comp is pretty well fit for that because we do have a blood DK that can end up gripping that guard out of the pile. As you'll see here, we're going to AoE all of these worms. We're going to use all of our AoE along with Windscar Whetstone and Odin's Fury. Just AoE them so fast that my stuff didn't even get to tick there. So you guys didn't get to see the full power of that AoE damage. But so luckily with the DK, we can pull that guy out. There is a really big pull right there. Once again, our rogue does stop this beacon, so we can get it from spawning. Something new that I guess it's not really new. It's kind of old, but now it's new. So there's an engineering orb you can see in that room right there on the right. We're gonna get it right after we kill these ads. But that orb makes all of those big construct guys inactive and neutral for the rest of the dungeon. They won't attack, they won't cast anything, but they'll still give credit. So it makes this dungeon drastically easier if you have an engineer and the orb spawns. So when Legion first came out, this was the thing. Like this thing just spawned. Not always, but it spawned, right? To the point where, when people were doing their plus 10 keys when that was the highest, when people were doing, I don't know if it was still available when the cap got raised to 15. I don't think it was. But what people were doing is they literally looked for quarter star keys and they purposefully just kept resetting the dungeon over and over until they got the orb to spawn because they made the dungeon so much easier to not have to deal with the constructs. So because of that, Blizzard removed it from the game, but I don't know what the reasoning was, and I don't know why Blizzard kind of stealth added it back in, but now it's back into the game, right? So now your Mythic Pluses can spawn with the orb. Of course, it's still RNG whether or not you have it. For this fight, I do tell my group, get your AoE trinkets ready because we're gonna just AoE that construct down with the boss, so we're gonna just go straight from the ads to the boss. But after I kill these ads, I do get a beacon on the left side. You want to get as many beacons enacted as possible, but you don't want to get all of them. You don't want to deactivate all of them because then you might trigger that extra RP that comes at the end, which is the requirements for that extra RP is pretty much disable all the beacons, and then find the spy without getting found, right? So we leave I think two of the beacons up just so we don't fulfill that requirement, so we don't get that extra RP where we're spying on the boss, and I think he's talking to Ellison if I remember correctly. So we purposely fail that, and that's good. For this boss fight, I mean, that little eye beam, it does some damage. If you can avoid it, try avoiding it. But this, you should definitely avoid. That's resonant slash. I think on higher levels, it will kill you. Of course, there's also that this arcane lockdown where you have to jump in order to get rid of it. It does provide some difficulty with volcanic at first, as you saw right there. He put the weight on my feet and he spawned volcanic right underneath me. Luckily, I was able to get out and not die to that. But that is something you should look out for a week like this. Um, of course, if this week was necrotic, you do want, as many beacons shut down as possible. So if we could, we would just only keep one beacon up so there's not two ads wailing on the tank and building necrotics. So right here, we already poisoned it. If you're an alchemist or rogue in the group, you can poison that drink she has. And we just head on straight to the next pack. I tell my tank to pull these mana worms because they're pretty easy to AoE. Um, but you'll kind of see here, we do mess up a little bit. So the plan originally was to AoE down everything on the construct, and then we pull the construct out. But I forgot that there was a guard in the group. So our tank is kind of forced to AoE pull the guard out, I guess. Um, because you can always just skip this construct here, right? Even if he wasn't inactive, this construct does not follow you that far. So you can outrange this construct. He doesn't follow you through the room, right? So even if you didn't have the engineering orb, you can technically skip this construct if you didn't want to do them, right? So unfortunately, as you saw right there, this guard walked through all of the sanguine piles and full healed. So we decided let's just kill the guard because the construct at this point has already full heal from the sanguine. So we leave him there, just chilling there. Um, but I want to kind of go further onto the AoE trinkets, and there's kind of two categories that I consider AoE trinkets, right? One is the AoE active category, and one is the AoE passive category. The AoE active category I consider as, Windscar Whetstone, Savage Sea Pod from Nathendra, Tony's Promise from Kara, right? Those three trinkets are kind of what I consider really good AoE trinkets, with Windscar being at the top. Um, just because it's a Mythic Plus, so you can get a really high level, and it does really good damage, right? I think I have an 880 right here, or 880 or 885, and it actually does more damage than Odin's Fury. It just does more on single target, and it does more on AoE than Odin's Fury, which is pretty crazy for a trinket. I mean, it's essentially like Wrath of Souls, except more OP in AoE, and less people know about it. And the reason why it's so OP in Mythic Plus is because of the fact you can swap trinkets, right? Because the trinket has a 2-minute cooldown to offset how much damage it does. But because we can just use the trinket and swap to another trinket, it essentially has only a 30-second cooldown, because every time you put on an active trinket, it incurs a 30-second cooldown, right? Unfortunately, our tank dies and we aggro the imps here. But luckily, we were able to power through, and we do end up killing all these ads without any more casualties. Of course, pop all your cooldowns when you have the ads on you, pop enrage regen. Luckily, these are casters, so they're not constantly wailing me, and we do get them focused down. Fortunately, with Sanguine Week and casters, they're chilling on that Sanguine, so we kind of have to wait for all of our interrupts to be ready to move them out of the Sanguine. I tried to fear to push one of them out, but it didn't work out too well because they kind of got hit right afterwards. Going back to the trinkets, so as far as inactive kind of AoE trinkets are considered, two that really stand out to, I think, to most people is Terrorbound Nexus and Claw of the Crystalline Scorpid. I think that's the name of it. The trinket that drops from Scorpion. Both of those trinkets, just pass the AoE randomly, kind of off of like a just proc rate. A third trinket that I'll add to that list of inactive trinkets essentially is Convergent of Fates, right? Convergent of Fates, even though it doesn't, do AoE, it allows you to use more battle cries. Essentially allows you to get a battle cry on every pull, or if you guys are pulling really fast, clearing trash really fast, then every other pull at least. So those three trinkets are really good. Of course, if you don't have either of those three and you somehow have Arcano, that's good too, or a really high mastery stat stick. But between the two kind of AoE damaging ones, Terrorbound Nexus and Claw, the Crisping Scorpid, I do heavily prefer Terrorbound Nexus as the better one, because kind of how it synergizes with Fury Warrior AoE. Unfortunately, you'll see right here, we do end up wiping for this. We'll kind of talk about it and talk about it first before we go into the trinkets further. We didn't get enough interrupts, so our tank kind of got one shot, and we pulled the extra ads. So unfortunate in there. But luckily, this is one of the best places to die because when you die right here, you spawn in that room. Or not in this room, but you spawn in the courtyard that's right there. So not all bad. So we do res and we just keep trucking along. But in regards to okay, how the two inactive trinkets synergize with Fury is that Fury Warriors we AoE kind of in a 360 around us, right? Whirlwind is 360. Odin's Fury is 360, right? So we want to be in the middle of all the ads, just whirlwinding, Odin's Furying, and we're good to go. But and Terrorbound Nexus works perfect, right? Because it sends out 4 waves in AoE and they come back in 4 directions, right? But unfortunately, Claw the Crystalline Scorpion literally only shockwaves in front of you, as if you're using our move Shockwave, right? So that forces you to kind of have to face all of the ads, and it really drastically reduces our AoE range because we can't have any ads behind us if you're using Claw the Crystalline Scorpion because the trinket wouldn't hit them otherwise, right? So just for that reason alone, that synergize that Terrabon Nexus has with kind of how we AoE, I heavily prefer that better. Um, you see right here, there's a trigger. That guy on the ground just requires any healer to heal him, and he'll come up to life. So while that's summoning, I tell the group, hey, let's just get some DPS on this construct while that guy is coming. Um, since the mini bosses are pretty easy, we do decide to take this mini boss along with those 2 ads that you're gonna see on the right. You'll see them get pulled. Those 2 right there on the right. We ended up pulling them together because I figure, hey, all of my AoE and cooldowns are up. Let's just get all 4 targets and AoE them down. Um, and since the mini boss is easy, those 2 ads are pretty easy. We'll just take them together. So that's kind of something that you always want to do. You always obviously want to come into the Mythic Pluses with a plan, but things always change. You kind of want to be flexible. Just really communicate with your team on what you have available and what you guys should do, right? So I have all my cooldowns, so just pull big, right? Kind of get more stuff than we should be. Um, all right, let me kind of going over it while this is happening. I mean, this ad is pretty simple, right? Just don't stand in a whirlwind. Just kind of move out a little bit. Um, I do have a lot of questions kind of going about my weak auras. Right, the stuff that you see on the bottom right there between my health bar and the enemies. So I do have a video, my essential WoW add-ons video, where I kind of go over all of my add-ons, and in that video I do have links to all of them, along with links to my weak auras. Whether you want to use the Pastebin link or the Wago link, they're both there, so you guys can just download my weak auras and use them. They're all available to you guys. Um, and I also get a lot of questions and kind of comments and whispers. There's just some. So if I don't get to your comments, either it means one of those 2 things. One is just comment it again on a new video because I probably just didn't see it. 2 is if somebody answered the question and I agree with the answer, a lot of times I just let that person answer because I would just be rehashing the exact same information. But I do get a lot of things about trinkets, and you really just do want to sim your gear, right? Like I can't really tell you what's better. I can kind of give you some tips on what's better, right? You obviously want the best legendaries, which is the helm and the cape. You want the 4-cent bonus. So if you have the helm and the cape, there's only 4 slots left, right? You want the auto attack ring, so that's a ring slot occupied. You want Draft of Souls, Convergence of Fates, right? You want Battle Cry relics. I can give you those tips, but I can't necessarily tell you exactly what piece of gear is better than another because every character has different stats. Every character has different, what they should be prioritizing as their next piece of gear. So you really want to sim your gear. You want to sim your upgrade to see if it really is an upgrade. Um, so as far as for this dungeon, mini bosses are really easy. This beam can do some damage as you get higher. As you see, our rogue kind of got pretty low there. So if you have a cooldown, you kind of want to pop it here. There's not really a reason to use your defenses for anything else other than these beams, since we're getting pretty close to fighting the bosses. And you're not going to need to use any personals for the next boss coming up. You might need it for the last boss, but not the next one. So as you see, when we're tanking the ad that summons these mini ads, you'll see in a second. I forget what their name is for a second. We'll pull it. Um, what are they called? Let me see. I'm just looking at some legendaries that my guildie's got, kind of mirroring. What they got. What are they called? Fell. Oh, Fellbound Enforcers, right? So the Enforcers, they do like a fell explosion, right? Those explosions can be line of sighted, and you'll see our tank is gonna pull this guy right around this corner. So when he does the explosion, we're gonna walk to the other side of the corner, right here. Fell detonation. We're all gonna come here to the right. I guess unfortunately our DK didn't make it through. I mean our Demon Hunter didn't make it through, but we didn't get a debuff. So this is pretty good. Saves your healers a lot of mana, right? Your healers can then DPS, which obviously helps speed up the run. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't get there fast enough, so I got a tick. But luckily, we're pretty geared enough to heal through it. But this is a mechanic you really want to watch out for, especially on Fortified, especially when it's raging, right? Fortified raging does not mess around with those felt detonations. They hit like a truck. And for a lot of cases, for a lot of specs, they will one shot you, right? Of course, Fury Warriors we have more HP, but if you're a class that has less HP or if you're not fully topped off, you might just get one shot by those. Um, but let's see what else. Oh, some people are commenting on my videos that how is my Draft of Souls hitting for 1.5 million? The real answer is that it's not. It's not hitting for 1.5 million. I'm hitting the same number as most of you guys are. 700 to 800,000 damage. All the only reason why you're seeing a 1.5 or 1.6 is because of the way mixed scrolling battle text works. It sometimes adds the damage together between ticks. So if you ever see like 1.5 damage and 1.6 million damage, it's literally just mixed scrolling battle text adding two ticks together. Like I'm not magically, doing double Jackal Souls damage, right? So for this boss, I do save my cooldowns here. I think on lesser keys, like lower level keys, I would just pop my cooldowns off the bat to try to push the boss faster. If we get low enough of a key, I think like probably 7 to 8 level, we'll just burn the boss so fast that I don't think the ads even matter. But I do save it here so we can just instantly kill the ads. Me and DM Hunter, we kind of go wild on them so they don't even do anything. Um, but that's pretty much it for this fight. You want to really be tightly grouped so that all the ads spawn in a nice little pile. The fires are a nice little pile so they're not everywhere. You can instantly AoE down the ads. So a lot of people I see the common mistakes for these ads is you don't stun these ads right away. There's no need to silence them right away either. These ads, they don't pop out and start casting, right? They actually, when they pop out, they walk towards the tank a little bit and they will actually group themselves up in melee. So you can just let them walk over. Obviously if they start casting, you want to interrupt it, but usually they don't start casting it right away, so you can wait a little bit. Of course, as always, for stuff like that, you don't want to be CCing instantly anyways because, right, you want the ads to kind of cast halfway, so you take advantage of that, cast minion, and that while they're casting, they do no damage. So you want to CC like while they're halfway through. So for this, since we have a Demon Hunter, we just need to get all 5 clues, and you can use his Spectral Sight or whatever, and he'll find the spy. Of course, if you have a prop paladin, they can always walk past one of these piles and their shield will glow. And you'll still need a couple of clues because your paladin will only know which one of the 4 it is. Your paladin will only know which 4 it is, but you still have to guess which one of the 4. But with a demon hunter, he can see the exact one, so that makes it really easy. Um, Another thing is why does my opener not have Odin's Fury in the beginning, right? So my opener puts Odin's Fury at the end. Even though putting Odin's Fury, earlier in the combo nets you more DPS for that 7 seconds of duration, that would come out to a lesser DPS in a long run because putting Odin Sphere at the back end of our combo essentially allows it to replace a Furious Slash. And that gain in DPS from replacing a Furious Slash with an Odin's Fury is much more than, using Odin's Fury, forward more and then pushing a Raging Blow back a GCD. Right? So that's kind of why we do it. Like that is it's not necessarily the most burst you can get in 7 seconds, but it does come out to the overall most DPS. And I'm talking about, you know, um kind of the draft rotation that I have in my draft video that I just released. All right, really quick, while we're doing this ad, I mean, this ad is pretty simple, right? Just kind of kill him. You want to make sure that your healers, or I guess a range DPS, start running out while this guy is getting low, around 20% HP. So you can use the keys and then open the door as soon as you can. But while this guy is going really quick, going over the new PTR notes for Fury Warrior 2 piece for tier 20. It's pretty exciting. So before the tier bonus for the 2-piece was Raging Blow has a 10% chance to generate 40 additional rage. This is pretty horrible because there's very few cases where we need 40 rage, right? A lot of times, when that's gonna proc, if we were to have this set piece still, if that was proc, we would most likely waste a lot of the rage, right? Let's say that procs when you at 90 rage. Bam, you just wasted 30 rage, right? Which is pretty horrible. Luckily, they changed it to this new one of Bloodthirst critical strikes have a 50% chance to grant you Raging Thirst, increasing the damage of your Raging Blow by 50% for 5 seconds. I mean, for 8 seconds, sorry. And that's huge, right? Because it's not just, as far as the wording is now, it's not just increasing one Raging Blow, it's increasing all of your Raging Blows for 8 seconds, right? And that's huge, right? Increasing the damage of one of our highest damaging abilities, especially before execute phase, is really, really good. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing kind of how that plays out. Uh, so for this fight, you want to be really kind of careful on Volcanic because every one of his, I guess, copies of himself will be able to spawn volcanics. So at the end of the fight, you're gonna get a lot of volcanics. And since we're essentially a full melee stack, right? A tank, 3 melee DPS, and a paladin healer, there's a lot of Sanguine kind of going around. You just want to be really careful, especially if you're using Draft of Souls. You want to make sure that you're ready for that damage coming in case of volcanic spawns right underneath you. Ideally we would have our Holy Pally go out further so he can kind of dodge the shots, but I mean, if he can handle the charges, he can handle the charges. That's fine with us. Um, Kind of going back over the tier pieces really quick. I hope that Blizzard kind of looks into the 4-piece and kind of does something with it because currently just our legendary helmet is already better than tier 24 piece. Like you gain more rage. It's literally the exact same thing, except the 4-piece is a shittier version of our legendary helmet. Um, but yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of it. If you guys enjoy these type of commentaries, or what else would you like to see me commenting about? Unfortunately, I don't get an auto attack ring here. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.